In MacGyver Engineering, today on the table we have an engine that was submerged in water for about 10 years, as I've been told. At least this is what I assume. Basically, it's a pump, driven by an induction motor, and it was lying in the corner ever since I work in this shop. I know the reason more or less, but I will not point the fingers. The thing is that when I open it and I try to check if it's working or not, I find out that in the electric collection box the water is about here, and the entire compartment is filled with gunk, which now it's kind of dry because I left it standing for a couple of days outside on the sun. And it's mostly oxides of aluminium and iron. So basically I started to open it without any hope that it will ever work, and for my surprise it turned out that it's in a better condition than I would ever anticipate. Well, as you can see, these bolts that keep the entire case together are fine, and in most of those engines that I ever worked with, galvanic corrosion did not allow to basically unscrew it, and in most cases I had to retap it or drill it and replace with the wire. Also the bearings, even if though this entire piece was fully submerged in water for many years, the bearings are still operational and they don't even crack if you listen to them. Well, I record this with a camera that doesn't record audio, so that's why it's not. The biggest surprise for me though was that the shaft and the blades are able to operate. It's very rarely I can see that. And here is a silicone filling, which I more or less understand why this pump got out of order and started to leak. I know this problem from the other pumps. Now, as to the body of the engine, as you can see, the surfaces, the iron surfaces are corroded. Here you can see the water line, how much water there was inside the engine for all that period of time. But it seems to me that the corrosion did not attack the metal, deeply. Possibly the water that was standing inside the engine, ran out of the oxygen. Well, I will use some sodium bisulfate, which is a swimming pool chemical, also called a dried acid, which is absolutely terrific for removing the rust. It will basically leave you with pure, metal or steel, iron surfaces. The point is to dilute it in water and basically dump it and leave it for at least a day or two. You can really do big parts, big chunks of metal, and it's much cheaper than even vinegar. Here you can see it right after submersion, so this bubbling probably didn't come from the reaction, but partially yes, it does. I didn't really check the electric connections yet. I do it right here after it's about 3 days later, when engine actually dried out, and I took it off. As you can see, most of the rust, the surface rust, is gone. There are some contamination left, but everything seems to be intact. So, well, I think I could really, test it. This is the shaft. It also was submerged in the same solution. As you can see, a little bit of the surface rust is coming back, so it has to be coated with something very soon. Now, this part is a part of the electric circuitry of it. It's basically bimetal overload protection, which in itself, even as a new, is not really reliable device. So I was thinking about putting inside a thermostat or something like that, but I decided that maybe it's not a good idea to rely on any kind of internal overload protection, I will definitely, I will most probably use something which will be inside the circuit board. To prevent further ingrep of the surface rust, I decided to coat it with a little bit of transparent varnish inside as on the outside of the plates, and that's it. Now the motor is fully functional. It was tested and it spins okay. I just leave myself a note about the overload protection to not forget it, and this engine goes to the store. Well, the problem with this engine probably was that it started to leak on this connection over here, and they tried to seal it with a silicone, which is not really a good idea because the pressure inside is quite significant. Better use the polymer filler. So the price of this engine is now about, as you can buy this cap, because I bought this cap quite recently and I paid about the same amount as I would pay for a new pump 10 years ago. So this one is a winner. It goes back on the shelf. More videos coming soon.